This is why children hate reading, and this is why the school system is at fault. My name is Jude. I'm an educator, education consultant, private tutor here with Limitless Education Group, and we're going to explore that problem of why are children hating reading, where it comes from, why the school system is at fault, and what you can start to look at or start to do to resolve that problem if you're facing that with your family or children. So it's bad to hate reading, but so many kids hate reading, and so many children end up becoming adults that hate reading. And you may be thinking to yourself, my kid doesn't hate reading, and you may ask your child if they hate reading, and they may say to you, oh, they don't hate reading. But they may say that because they just don't want to get in trouble, or they don't want you to think that they're dumb, or they don't want themselves to think that they're dumb. But the thing is, a lot of kids actually hate reading. And let me tell you about a few experiences that I've had working with students personally and how they came to that realization themselves. There's a student that we've been working with for some time. They're in 10th grade, and they were reading the book 1984 by George Orwell. They started reading this book on their own without it being a class assignment, and as they were reading it to just actually enjoy the book for itself. And at that moment, during that period they were reading it, it struck them that they actually hate reading, and they realized why it is. Because in school, when they're getting an assignment for their class, the teacher is making them read to answer some specific questions, and oftentimes there's a time limit within these assignments. Maybe you got to read 100 pages over 2 days, and write an essay based on what you wrote. And so as a result, they're not actually reading the material to enjoy the material. They're just reading the material to get the work done, get an A or whatever grade, whatever class that they have, so that they can look good to their parents, their peers, to society. They're not doing it for the pleasure of it. So this is everything that she realized and that she was telling me, and it makes sense, because in the current system that we have, children are scored by silly metrics as to how did they know, or what color was the room in the main character's bedroom in 1984 in the first chapter, and when did he move to a different area, right? That's not, you're just marking the kid based off if they can remember a specific line on a specific page, not about actually what is the greater context of the book. So the questions that the school system is designing for these kids are just being designed to prove that the kid had read the book. It's not actually measuring anything real about what the kid is comprehending, what the child is learning, and such like that. And these metrics, these assessments, these questions get the kids and the parents to focus on the wrong things, right? The thing is, we know this is true because the questions that the system is asking has nothing to do with what the author actually intended. Let's take Shakespeare, for example. Shakespeare wrote plays, right? He wrote plays that were meant to be watched and enjoyed by watching, not read. But yet millions of 10 and 12-year-olds across the country, across the world, are being tortured by his plays now, because they have to remember what color was Juliet's dress in chapter 12 when they were going to the dinner, right? That has nothing to do with what the author intended. And so our student realized this when she was taking her SRAs, and I forget exactly what SRA stands for right now, maybe standardized reading assessment, doesn't matter. But you're taking these SRAs, and these are tests that they had to do periodically, and they have different topics on the articles that you have to read. It could be about history, they could be about science, they could be about business or something like that. And so the problem that she ran into was that she was actually reading the passages to enjoy them. They're like 2-3 page passages. She was actually reading the passages to enjoy it, not to answer the questions at the end. Whereas all the other kids, they would go straight to the end, read the questions, then go back to the reading and just read and skim the text and find the answer. And so because she was doing it the wrong way, which is actually just reading to enjoy it, she found herself falling behind. And so she was testing behind. She was scoring behind in the eyes of the system. And she was telling me how, just because she was scoring poorer, start to get self-conscious and lose some confidence in herself because of where she was marked as in the class, her student ranking. And so the problem is that actually did affect her ability to learn overall. And so that just sucked. The problem is that students and teachers and the school system is just training our start your children to read just to answer the question. But the thing is, that doesn't actually measure how much a student really knows, right? The way the questions are designed especially is not designed to measure how much they know. And if you can give them different types of questions, right? Open-ended questions. But the thing is, it's also easy for the kids to BS these types of questions. You can ask, how did you feel about what Othello said to character A in the story? And it's easy for the kid to say, hey, I felt good about it. And that's it, without actually expanding to see what they really know and what they truly think about the topic. And so the only way to solve this type of problem, in the system at least, is to design better questions. But designing better questions would mean that the teacher has to put in more effort, right? And the teacher, many teachers are just, at the end of the day, to them it's just a job. It's a 9 to 5. They're only there to do as minimum work as possible, to get as maximum pay as they possibly can. And at the end of the day, if the student does well or not, it's not really their problem. It's not their child, as long as they get paid and they can go home and do what they actually would like to do, right? So that's what's holding teachers and the system back from actually designing effective questions and designing effective courses so that a child could actually get what may be a better education out of it all, right? So in order to do that, you'd have to pay the teachers more, right? But there's a whole system behind that that's not going to really do that right now. Right? So all that being said, the greater problem, the greater picture you have to look at as a parent is, did your child actually learn how to learn? Or were they just being taught how to pass a test, right? Did they actually learn how to think? Or were they just being taught, here's what the answer is, here's what the question is, here's what the answer is, right? And the reason that becomes a problem is that as we're heading into this even more technologically advanced society where there are going to be machines and robotics and software, computer systems that have also been taught and trained in the same way of, here's a question, what's the answer? The thing is that those machines can do it in half the time for a quarter of the cost than the average person, the average student. And if your student is average, right, they're doing good, they're doing well, is what I hear a lot of parents say. My kid's doing okay, my kid's doing good. If they're doing good, that actually means they're really far behind. If they're doing bad, no, that's a whole other case. They're like just drastically far behind, okay? As the world's changing, even if you are the top kid in the class, right, you have to be not just top kid in the class, but the top kid in your state, the top kid in your country, the top kid in the world, in order to start getting a halfway decent position in this world. So since the way your child right now is being educated is just being educated on how to game the system, when they get out of that school system and there's real life that's going to smack them in the face, smack them in the eyes, in between the eyes, what game are they going to play? They either have to know the information and be able to be confident in their ability to produce, or they're just going to be swept away and left in the dust and eaten up by the greater system. Now, as a parent, do you really want that for your child? Do you really want them to just go through life and struggling because they haven't actually figured out how to develop themselves as a competent individual, because they never actually learn how to read, which is their ability to learn how to think and how to do it because they want to, not because they're being forced to do it, okay? Because in life, you're never going to get the answers to the question straight up. There's not going to be a specific line, a specific page of a specific book that's going to answer your question of, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? You're going to have to accumulate a lot of information and make decisions based off all the things that you're seeing, right? Which is an ability to think critically, ability to process information, but that's not what they ever had learned in the system. So I know, hey, maybe mom, dad, you've been saying this to your kids. Maybe you've been telling them, hey, you got to read more. You can't just be reading to answer the questions, right? Maybe as a parent, you kind of think that already, but sometimes these kids have to hear it from not mom and dad. They have to hear it from a third party, right? To actually get them to be motivated to learn in a better way. And so, what we have is a better way. What we have is the best system, right? You could possibly imagine. We've got thousands of students that we've been working with from all across the world. And so if you would like to see what that could look like for your child, right? So that they can actually get the education that they need and that they deserve, feel free to drop us a line, drop us a message, send us a call, send us a text. We'd be happy to put somebody in touch with you that can show you a few things, at least show you some options that you can consider to see, okay, what more can I do for my child, since the system at hand is not preparing them for this inevitable future. Okay, so this is Jude again, Limitless Education Group. It's a pleasure to have you here, talk with you, and we are looking forward to seeing you again very soon. All the best. Take care.